DECC are in the process of looking to change the way we currently are set up on boilers. It's 11 years now since we've had condensing boiler changes mandatory, April the 1st, I think it was, 2005. And so they're looking at doing things. They've done various schemes in the past that have been a bit of a flop. So we've seen things like the Green Deal and various other schemes. What was successful was the boiler scrappage scheme. And so they want to build on that and think, well, actually, 11 years on is the more we can do with condensing boilers. And actually, they've recognised that condensing boilers have saved more energy and carbon than any other scheme. And so they think it's time to have another look at that. And the way they're looking at it is looking at building regulations and how we can just do little things, lots of little things that actually could make a difference. So what they're actually looking at doing, so we've got condensing boilers. Condensing boilers are mandatory. So when your boiler packs up, or you move house, or you update your kitchen, etc., which requires a new boiler, you've got to have a condensing boiler. But what they then think is necessary, and we would agree with this, is that you do things like flushing the system out, so dirty water inside the system, because inevitably you just change the boiler, you don't change the system, you don't change the radiators. So you've got dirty water inside there, and it's recognised that clean water can actually make the boiler more efficient by about 3-4%. So there's a little thing, but you multiply that by 26 million homes, which is what we've got in the UK, that can make a big difference in energy saving, but also carbon, which is really the currency that they work with. So that's one thing, is having clean systems. Another thing, and probably the thing that will lead it, is controls. It's still estimated there's 9 million homes in the UK that don't even have a room thermostat. So the boiler comes on and it just stays on, and there's nothing there turning it off. Obviously that's wasteful, but also it's just poor efficiency of the system, and people end up opening the windows to let the heat out, which is just bonkers. So controls, and by the controls they're talking about sophisticated controls that actually make the boiler go up and down, modulate, in other words, and therefore makes the boiler work at a lower output as it gets up to temperature. And this is using things like outside weather compensation or flow temperature control. And so sophisticated controls, which we do. But what's really caught the imagination are these internet connected controls, so like our wave controller. One of the ways forward now with this potential change to building regulations is that the Department of Energy and Climate Change want to consult industry, and we've been party to that. And so Martin Bridges and myself have been down a number of times now to Whitehall, to the DECC offices, and part of that has been to engage installers, because it's very important and must be recognised that the installer is a key part of the supply chain. So as a manufacturer, we make the equipment, we sell it to a builder's merchant, who then sells it to an installer and puts it in someone's house. But it's well known that the key to that supply chain is the installer. He's the decision maker. The thinking at the moment is that they're consulting, and we've been party to that, but really it's looking at the timeline, and as recognised, it's 11 years now since we've seen any changes to the building regulations and since condensing boilers came in. So the timeline is they're consulting now. There's a consultation out, should be around about the summertime, and then they with consultations, it normally takes about 3 months for people to feed back on their thoughts and whether it's viable and whether there's any issues. And as long as that goes forward, which we would expect it to be, we would probably see some changes for the industry and installers in particular, looking at April 17.